requirement. I know what the Constitution says about financial bills. If you are introducing a bill, Article 106 requires that you gazette it. What is the essence of gazetting? So that the Ghanaian public will follow and know that this bill will be introduced in saying that consider it as the agency for me. You will not have time to engage stakeholders. That is what you were seeking to do with e-living. And that is why you were arrested from doing it, because we thought that given the magnitude of it, you needed to engage. It's like passing a banking bill overnight without consulting banks, or passing an insurance bill overnight without consulting stakeholders within the insurance industry. So, Minister for Communication, get it right. The whip cannot be wrong within the meaning of our standing orders. What he is saying is, Mr. Speaker, we request, in addition to the Minister for Finance engaging and consulting, we are requesting that our Committee on Finance, to which you made the referral, must also engage the Ghanaian public, engage the stakeholders, and engage the finance companies to appreciate it. That raises, so Mr. Speaker, let me now come to my own issues. And even the telecos and the regulator, even the Bank of Ghana and the NCA must all be consulted. If you understand electronic money, all these stakeholders, Bank of Ghana, you need to engage them. The NCA as a regulator, you need to engage them. What the whip is simply suggesting to you is that the engagement should not be the solo activity of the Minister of Finance, and that our Committee of Finance is very capable and close to do that, and that we demand. Mr. Speaker, now to my own issues. Yesterday, you know, I had to leave the board meeting with my colleague, the Business Committee, so I didn't have opportunity to deal with this matter. So I thought that I should draw his attention to it. National Identification Authority. Mr. Speaker, as I went home on recess, I visited my villages as a rural MP, and I went to Adubleyele and Datoyele in the Tamale South constituency, and they raised a legitimate issue that in that community, less than 10-20 people had national ID cards, and there were problems even with SIM registration. We have heard the Chief Executive of National Identification Authority describe SIM registration as a useless activity, to quote him, senseless, and that it was not. I'll get his exact words. I say I'll quote his exact words for the answer. Honorable, Google it for me what he said.
Honorable Minority Leader, is this part of your comments on the business committee?
I will now relate it, yes, Mr. Speaker. So I'm demanding that the National Identification Authority be hauled before Parliament and any supervising minister to give appropriate and adequate report on the status of the national identification exercise, where they have reached, including we are demanding. Mr. Speaker, it is even more important because when this house was considering the budget estimates of the Electoral Commission, probably members didn't listen to you when you took interest in the EC's report. You kept emphasizing two lines: matters relating to SAL, matters relating to creation of new. But more importantly, in that report was the EC saying that the national ID card will be the source of a voter register for the purpose of future elections. If you don't get it right, you puncture your democracy. It is for this reason that I'm saying that. And Mr. Speaker, on this same matter, let's go back to the present State of the Nation address. I'll paraphrase the president. He called for harmonization and synchronization of data, including that of SNIT. We need to know, where are we? How much money have you spent? What has happened? We need to know. And we are demanding that the ministers, whoever is supervisor, and the institutions are brought here. Mr. Speaker, finally, may I refer you again, Mr. Speaker? Yes, what did the man say? Give me his words. Mr. Speaker, may I now refer you to Article 187. Article 187 of the 1992 Constitution. Mr. Speaker, I miss conclave because I was running from my office. I know yesterday this matter came up, and I thought that myself and the majority leader should work in harmony with you. Article 18715, which was quoted ably yesterday at the board meeting by the Honorable Abraham Osei Edu. It reads, and I quote, "The accounts of the Office of the Auditor General shall be audited and reported upon by an auditor appointed by Parliament." Mr. Speaker, yesterday you said you engaged the leadership so that we can put a small committee in place. This matter has been pending for too long, and I thought that you can instruct the leaders to get a 5-member committee to do what is appropriate, so that we get a committee as Parliament to appoint the auditor for the Auditor General as is required of us under Article 187. Mr. Speaker, even though I have left the matter of National Identification Authority, Dr. Kenneth Tifa is reported to have said that data from SIM card registration is useless, unquote. We are not part of it, unquote. Those are not my words, they are the words of the professor. And we know that as a country, national identification an important exercise. We support it fully, but we want to get it right. Where are they? Where are they, including your SIM registration?
Honorable Minority Leader, you made the point.
Okay, Mr. Speaker, finally,
we are looking at business committee.
Mr. Speaker, finally, while the finance committee will engage, we will know whether 100 Ghana cedis sent on Momo or on money tax. But Mr. Speaker, you have to tolerate me on e-levy because it's missing here. And what the Minister for Communication is saying is what is making me bring it up. Ideally and ordinarily, today, the e-levy must have been part of today's business. Ideally and ordinarily, it must have been part. What happened? That is where we were when the House adjourned. So that is why the minister must allow us to respect the leader and stop what she's doing. Ideally. So don't think that we have asked for consultation. We have not. If you want, bring it. We are ready. Bring e-levy now. That is what you told us. That is what you told the Ghanaian people. Bring e-levy. We are ready. That is what you said.
Honorable Minority Leader.
That is what you said.
Honorable Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Minister for Interior.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I am the minister with supervisory role over the NIA. The position, the alleged position of Professor Atifa on or purported disagreement between him and the Minister for Communication is unfounded. What happened was a distortion of earlier communication. The professor came out to make it clear, made it to me, made it to the country, that he is in support of the re-registration of SIM card and that he has no opposition to that. Mr. Speaker, I am the minister with supervisory jurisdiction of that. And I speak on authority. And this house is a house of record. And
honorable members, please,
I would ask that
resume your seats and listen to the minister. After that, if you want me to give you opportunity, I'll do so. Yes, Minister.
I would ask that this house go by what is the true position as stated by the professor to me and to the country, that what had been communicated earlier was a distortion of an earlier technical correspondence between him and some other people. The position now is that the professor is solidly behind the re-registration. Yes. Mr. Speaker, I think that this house should be the house where facts can be found. And I do not have any difficulty if people want to find out anything about NIA. But it is my duty to correct the allegations and the wrong impressions that are being created. And so please, yes, we know what the social media can do, but what I am telling you is the official position declared by the professor to me and the country, and he's behind the re-registration.
Honorable members, we actually have a lot of work today, including statements. We are just at the stage of listening to comments on the report of the business committee presented by the chairman of the business committee. Don't let's waste too much time on this. He has taken note of the concerns raised and he's capable of responding to them. So, with your kind permission, I'll allow the chairman of the business committee to respond to the comments that have been made so far. Chairman, you may do so now.
Speaker, the Honorable Ablakwa, related to item 2B of the memorandum on the business statement, and said that the majority leader has inadvertently been described as the minister leader. Speaker, I noticed the error, and I think that it's a typo. There's no position. There's no position known as minister leader. So clearly, it's a typo. Speaker, the message on the state of the nation, I couldn't really relate to the exact date, because even though we have some date in mind, I think we have to also relate to the calendar of the Right Honourable Speaker. Initially, the President had given us some indication. I have no formal communication from the Speaker, but I've heard that there is some calendar for his presence in Ghana and outside Ghana. So we need to do the reconciliation, because I believe that in the presentation of the message on the state of the nation, the Speaker should be in the country. So that's the only reason why I did not mention the dates that we're contemplating. We have to have some discussion with the Speaker on that. Speaker, the other motions that you referred to, I think we discussed them yesterday, that they can't be eternally on the back burner. So we have to bring them forward and take some decisions on them, in particular relating to the procurement, the motion of procurement of the Sputnik V, and also I think the one on the death stock. So those ones certainly will have to be brought to the front burner. I want to believe that we can take them next week, but that will be after some engagement with the ministers involved. Speaker, the Honourable Suhini raised an issue that the business committee was silent on something. Unfortunately, speaking through his mask, I couldn't hear him well. So, if you can repeat it. You raised an issue about the business committee's silence on a oh, okay. Mr. Speaker, certainly that is not within the remit of the business committee. I'm saying that is not. We don't generate suo motu the agenda of the House. Apply yourself to to the standing orders. We don't generate our own orders. However, Mr. Speaker, I think in my own welcome address, I made mention of it, that we've had a statement from the Speaker's office, not really committing Parliament, but I said that it's important for us as a House, as representatives of the people, to come together on that. Beyond that, is it possible for us to maybe perhaps make some contribution towards alleviating the plight of the people? Is it possible for us to do that? We may have to put our minds together on that. That's beyond the messages of condolence and empathy. I think we have to do something. And we can only do so after conferring and consulting amongst ourselves. Mr. Speaker, I think Honorable Bawa Edward referred to an issue that I raised. It has to do with what I said relates to what as a House we have done. And I related to the three barriers that we have crossed. That is approval of the budget, the consideration of the estimate, which I said is predicated on the revenues from the e-levy, which as a House we have agreed on, and the appropriations bill. But I said, having agreed on these things, because it's a new regime, we have to support it with a bill. And it's at the stage of the consideration of the bill that the House is at now. I've never said that we have approved of the bill. I've never said that we have approved of the bill. So I spoke about technically what you have done, the import of what you have done, and where we are. If you heard me right. So make that distinction. I should correct myself. There's nothing to correct. My colleague, there's nothing to correct. There's nothing to correct. Mr. Speaker, the other matter relates to what to do. That is the application the minister has made for us in respect of where we are with the e-levy. Mr. Speaker, yes, the minority leader reinforced what the minority chief whip had said by quoting Article 106 of the Constitution. And Mr. Speaker, I agree with that position, except to add that Article 106 of the Constitution 5 provides. Article 106.5 provides. 106.5. Where a bill has been deliberated upon by the appropriate committee, it shall be reported to Parliament. That committee that had a referral had considered the bill and submitted their report to Parliament. The report has not been considered by the House yet. The report has not been considered by the House yet. The Speaker, but that they have submitted a report is beyond dispute. Mr. Speaker, the bill is government business. And as you do know, at any stage of the consideration of the bill, the sponsoring minister could even come to say that he's withdrawing the bill. Today he's saying that he needs time to engage. But because we've not deliberated on the report as of yet, could the committee, maybe between now and then, do further engagement? The Speaker, that, as far as I'm concerned, if the committee wants to do that, given the time that they have, if they want to do that, I'm not too sure that anybody can say to them that we are not allowing you to do that. It will require the House to pass me that announcement. But if that enrich the report, I don't see anything wrong with it, except it will then mean that you have to withdraw the report and then resubmit the report. The report has been submitted. In fact, it's been late. Mr. Speaker, it's been late. The technical issue that the committee then will be confronted with will be then to appeal to the House to withdraw the reports if it becomes necessary, then relay it. Other than that, Mr. Speaker, if it's going to inure to the benefit of the country, I would say, why not? Because we need to be very consultative about this and then to chart a better way for us as a House. Mr. Speaker, let me quickly also add that nobody is engaging in any tricks to prevent this House from considering the bill on the LGBT.
Honorable, the word was withdrawn.
No, I'm saying
So
it's not a withdrawal, Mr. Speaker. It's not a withdrawal of that particular word.
Yes.
That is tricks.
Yes.
But the point was made that the House, this side of the House, is preventing this House from considering the bill.
Because you referred to the same word, that's why I came in. But for the issue, you can comment on it. But because you referred to the same word, tricks, that's why I said that's been withdrawn.
Okay, I take a cue. Mr. Speaker, just to say that nothing is being done by this House, any side of the House, to prevent this House from debating the bill on the LGBT. The Speaker, the minority leader is asking for the chief executive of NIA to come to brief Ghanaians on the status of the NIA registration. Mr. Speaker, I'm not too sure that that has anything to do with the statement before us. I use a legitimate concern. Why not? Maybe through the appropriate minister we can have that. Because we need to know. Honestly, as I speak, I can't even trace my own NIA card. I say so because we were registered here, and then we were asked to tarry a while. I have asked that I should have my card. It's not been given to me yet, and I'm still knocking on doors to have my card. So if I have to go to register my SIM card with a NIA card, I'll have a difficulty. And that is why I'm asking that they should assess their own system. The person who even came to register you cannot, on his own, enter the system to retrieve your ID card number for you, unless with special permission, unless you apply. And that's where we have some challenge. But we see the Speaker, if it's necessary to invite him to address these matters, because a lot of Ghanaians would want to know the status of the NIA registration. I don't see anything wrong with it, except to say to the minority leader, who is a member of the committee and indeed a ranking member of the committee, to stop this practice of causing internal bleeding to the committee anytime the committee comes to this place. You are a member of the committee. You don't raise those issues there. You come and you want deliberately to cause internal bleeding to the committee. That is not good. The Speaker, the case about the Auditor General appointing whoever, I think we need to come together on that. I'm not too sure that that's a subject matter for us in plenary. Thank you very much.
Honorable members. Yes, Honorable Swin.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is a House of Record, and I just want to agree with the Interior Minister when he says that it's a House of Record. And so it's important that our records are put right. Mr. Speaker, the Interior Minister says he has oversight over the National Identification Authority and that he has been informed. I would have left it at that if he said he was informed by the good old professor that the NIA, supports the SIM registration exercise, because I wasn't there and I wouldn't know what he was told. But he added that he has been informed, and the people of Ghana to know that he now supports the SIM registration. Mr. Speaker, the record available is that there was a letter that was issued in response to queries as to the efficacy of the SIM registration exercise. Now that letter, I will refer to it. That letter is what generated the discussion in the public. The NIA issued a statement, and it is the statement that the Minister of Interior suggests now supports the SIM registration. The statement was issued on 19th January 2022 and signed by this head of corporate affairs, Abudu Ganiu. And in that statement, Mr. Speaker, paragraph 5 states, and I quote, that the NIA stands by every statement contained in its response letter of 13 September 2021 as being technically factual, accurate, correct, and honest. Quote and unquote. Mr. Speaker, what was contained in the letter of 13 September 2021 simply said that technically they could not vouch for the efficacy of the biometrics that were taken by the company together with the NCA for the SIM registration purposes. And again, legally, they argue in that 13th letter that they are mandated by law to do the SIM registration exercise. So the professor couldn't have been supporting the SIM registration exercise when in his own statement, signed by his head of corporate affairs, says they still stand by the content of the letter that they wrote on the 13th. And that letter simply says that technically they cannot vouch for the efficacy of the current SIM registration exercise and legally in charge of the registration exercise. I just thought that this record has to be put straight because this indeed is a house of record. I thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Speaker.
Well, in view of what you just raised, I'll give the opportunity to the Minister for Communications to at least comment on what you said and maybe set the record straight. Yes, please.
Mr. Speaker, no law in this land has given the NIA the sole authority to conduct SIM registration in this country. No law in this land. And I will challenge the member who just said that the NIA is the one by law with sole responsibility to conduct SIM registration to indicate where in the NIA's own letter it says so. The NIA is mandated by law to collect biometrics for the purpose of issuing a national identification card. The law also requires certain activities to be done if you require verification of the identity of the person to use the national ID card as the sole card for that purposes. And so there is no law in this country which has given the NIA the authority to conduct SIM registration in this land. The SIM registration regulations makes it mandatory for only registered SIMs to be activated by any network operator. So any SIM which is not registered, which is activated for network in this country, is being used illegally. We are seeking to correct that illegal use of SIM cards in this country by the regulator of mobile network operators in this country, acting under its authority, under the law, the National Communications Authority law, the SIM registration regulations, to direct that all SIMs in this country be registered for use on networks in this country. That is the prerogative of the National Communications Authority, working in conjunction with the mobile network operators. And that is the state of the law in this country. I have refrained from contributing to the discussions on this matter because I know that this matter is the subject of a lawsuit currently pending. And so I will restrict my comments to correct the false impression created on the floor of this House, which is the House of Record, that the NIA has said anywhere that it is the sole authority mandated by law to conduct SIM registration in this country. That is not factual, and that is not a statement of the facts or the law in this country. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable members, the report submitted by the Business Committee, subject to the comments that have been made by members, shall be deemed to have been adopted by this House for the purpose of guiding us in the conduct of our business during the week. We know by our rules, during the course of the week, other urgent businesses could be introduced on daily basis after due consultations on the order paper of the day. So let's adopt this. But notice has been given by many of you of the urgent need for the Business Committee to consider earlier businesses that are before the House, which are yet not concluded. And the Business Committee is being called upon to program those businesses for the due conclusion by the House. But there are also areas that members must realize that the Business Committee doesn't generate the business. We have this House not only government business, we also have Parliament business, and we have private business. It's a government business that the majority leader and leader of the House is in charge, not the other businesses. The Parliament business and private businesses are usually routed through the due authorities, including the Speaker, for admission. It's after they've been admitted that they are then referred to the Business Committee to be programmed for the House. And so it's not all that just go to the Business Committee through the leader of government business. And so some of the things that I refer to are things that must come through me as Speaker for consideration and possibly referral to the Business Committee. This matter of appointment to audit the accounts of the Auditor General is a matter to be dealt with by the House. We're trying to get the best procedure of implementing that. It's not by the Speaker, neither is it by the Parliamentary Service Board. The Constitution says it's by Parliament. The appointment is by Parliament. And so we are consulting to iron out the detailed mechanisms and processes and procedures to adopt to make sure that the decision is taken by Parliament, not by any individual or component of Parliament. With regard to the issue of the message on the state of the nation, yes, Article 67 is very clear that the President should present a message on the state of the nation to the House. But how is this done? The President can be ready to come to submit. Parliament may not be ready to receive it. Parliament will have to be consulted to program the day that the President will come to present the message on the state of the nation. It's not for nothing that when somebody is about to enter your room, at least the person says, "I go." You just don't walk in. These are good practices that are adopted when you are formulating laws. And so, yes, the President is duly consulting Parliament on this matter, and the date will be fixed, and the President will come to present the message on the state of the nation. So with this, the Business Committee, to kindly capture the other pending businesses for the consideration of the House. A business committee for the week is therefore duly adopted. Now, honorable members, we have, with your kind permission, two statements that are quite important, which I believe even your comments have underscored the importance and agency of those statements. One is coming from the Minister in charge of lands and natural resources, and is in connection with the national disaster, which you referred to. And I think it's appropriate I give him the time now to make the statement. So we are now at item 6 on the order paper, which is statements. The urgent questions will be taken later, and the Honourable Minister for Lands and Natural Resources to make the statement. Honourable Minister, you are welcome.
Mr. Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity to make this important statement on the tragic Apiati incident. On Thursday, 20th January 2022, a deadly disaster befell our nation. A truck carrying explosives for mining from the site of Maxim, a company registered and licensed by the Minerals Commission to provide mine support services in the nature of supply of explosives to Chirano Gold Mines Limited, a large-scale mining company, was involved in a tragic event, resulting in an explosion that led to the loss of lives and extensive destruction to property in Apiati, a community in the Pristia-Huni Valley district of the Western region. Mr. Speaker, preliminary investigations have established that Maxam Ghana Limited had subcontracted the transportation of the explosives to a company called Josedek Logistics Limited, another company registered and licensed by the Minerals Commission to provide mine support services in the nature of clearing, warehousing, and transportation of explosives for mining. Initial reports from officials of the Minerals Commission and officers of the security agencies indicate that the incident occurred when the truck carrying the explosives collided with a tricycle at a section of the road in Apiati along the Bogoso-Bodia Highway. The impact of the collision resulted in a spark which caused a chain of reaction of explosions, bringing about the devastation to the town, which we have all seen. As at Monday, 24th January 2022, 13 people had been confirmed dead and at least 100 people sustained various degrees of injuries. The impact of the explosion also caused considerable damage to several buildings in the community, rendering many families homeless. Mr. Speaker, on the instructions of the President of the Republic, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, the security services and other states, including the Ghana Armed Forces, the Ghana Police Service, the Ghana National Fire Service, the Ghana Ambulance Service, the National Disaster Management Organization, and the Minerals Commission responded quickly to the incident, helping to save many lives and property in the ensuing issue. The response of government, indeed, Mr. Speaker, was swift and robust. Again, Mr. Speaker, on the instructions of the President of the Republic, a delegation from government led by the Vice President, His Excellency Alhaji Dr. Muhammadu Bawumia, which included my good self, the Ministers for Interior and Information, the Inspector General of Police, officials of the Minerals Commission, and other senior officers of our security services, visited the community to assess for ourselves the impact of the explosion and to commiserate with the victims of this horrific disaster. The delegation received briefings from the security personnel on the ground, visited the site of the explosion, as well as the injured in hospitals and displaced people. Government has decided to pay in full the medical bills of all those who were injured in this incident. The explosion destroyed a portion of the road, making transportation to and from other communities through Apieti very difficult. Already, Mr. Speaker, government through the Ministry of Roads and Highways has commenced repair works on the road to make it motorable. Mr. Speaker, the conveyance, storage, possession, manufacture, and the use of explosives and substances used for the manufacturing of explosives for mining, quarrying, and other civil works are governed by the Minerals and Mining Act 2006, Act 703, and the Minerals and Mining Explosives Regulations 2012, LI 2177. Strict regulations for dealing in explosives, including the appointment of competent explosive managers who must be certified by the Minerals Commission. The packaging and marking of explosives must be in accordance with the recommendations of the United Nations Committee of Experts on the Transport of Dangerous Goods, and the transportation must be by a vehicle approved by the Chief Inspector of Mines. The law also requires that the vehicle be in a sound working condition with no patent defects, propelled by diesel, provided with 2 fire extinguishers that are readily available for use, bonding between the chassis and the body, and is fitted with 2 earthen chains adequately bonded to the chassis and maintained between the chassis and the ground. No other materials are to be carried in the compartment containing the explosives, and that compartment must be totally enclosed, covered with sheet metal, and lined internally with wood treated in a manner that renders it non-inflammable. The vehicle carrying the explosives must move only between the hours of 6 a.m. and 6 p.m., use a direct and fastest route, and less densely populated route is available, and not drive at more than 60 kilometers per hour. The vehicle must be accompanied by a competent person certified by the Minerals Commission and a police escort, and shall not stop at any time of the transportation unless to avoid an accident or to comply with traffic regulations. Mr. Speaker, Regulation 2 of LI 2177 makes the Chief Inspector of Mines the Chief Inspector of Explosives and is responsible for ensuring compliance with the law. Mr. Speaker, the security agencies are carrying out investigations to ascertain the actual cause of the incident, as well as the events in its immediate aftermath. The Minerals Commission is also carrying out its investigations to determine whether or not LI 2177 was complied with in the packaging, loading, marking, and transportation of the goods, the subject matter of the incident. To ensure fair and impartial investigations into and non-interference in the matter, on Friday, 21st February 2021, I, as the Minister responsible for Lands and Natural Resources, directed the Chief Executive Officer of the Minerals Commission to interdict the Chief Inspector of Mines, who, as I indicated earlier, doubles as the Chief Inspector of Explosives, pending the conclusion of investigations into this matter. I further directed that the registration of Mazam Ghana Limited with the Minerals Commission be suspended whilst investigations are conducted into the mode of their operations. Mr. Speaker, pursuant to these instructions, mine inspectors from the Minerals Commission on Saturday, 23rd January 2022, closed down Maxam Company Limited and stationed 2 mine inspectors there to guard the facility day and night. Mr. Speaker, yesterday, Monday, 24th January 2022, I received a preliminary draft report from the Minerals Commission. Following this report, I have since directed the Chief Executive Officer of the Minerals Commission to suspend the registration with the Minerals Commission of Josedek Logistics Limited, the subcontractor that was transporting the explosives. Investigations are ongoing to ensure that no breach of the regulations is allowed to go unpunished. Mr. Speaker, I expect the final report soon, and this will inform the next courses of action. Mr. Speaker, I have held separate meetings with management of Maxam Ghana Limited, Chirano Gold Mines Limited, and the leadership of the Ghana Chamber of Mines to discuss matters pertaining to health and safety in the mining industry and how to avoid such future occurrences. Mr. Speaker, government has decided to establish an Apieti support fund to mobilize sufficient funds from across the country in order to, amongst others, support the victims of the incident and reconstruct Apieti Township. This morning, on the instructions of the President of the Republic, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, I inaugurated a 5-member committee chaired by a distinguished and eminent Ghanaian stateswoman, Reverend Dr. Joyce Ayi, the founder of Salt and Light Ministries, and a former Chief Executive Officer of the Ghana Chamber of Mines to manage the fund. Mr. Speaker, let this House be rest assured the Apieti community will be rebuilt. I, also pursuant to Section 101 of the Minerals and Mining Act 2006 as 703, intend to establish a ministerial committee of inquiry which will examine the entire health and safety regime of mining in Ghana and make recommendations for legislative and policy reforms. The committee will be given 1 month to present its report. Mr. Speaker, it is imperative that out of this calamitous event, we work to draw useful lessons and get to a situation where we can confidently say, never again. Mr. Speaker, we are grateful to the officials of the security agencies and other state agencies, including the National Ambulance Service and the National Disaster Management Organization, for their brave and patriotic. We are told, for instance, Mr. Speaker, that the response of the National Ambulance Service, which now has an ambulance in each constituency of our country, was swift. But for their rapid response and the help of ambulances of nearby constituencies, the situation would have been worse. We are also grateful to those individuals who volunteered to communicate to the people of the community to move away from the scene, and those who volunteered to donate blood at the various hospitals to support the injured. We pray that the good Lord replenishes everything they have lost. Let me use this opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to assure this august House that investigations into this matter will be thorough, comprehensive, candid, fair, and will be done in accordance with the highest standards of integrity and transparency. Anyone found culpable will be made to face the full rigors of the law. Government, through the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources, is also committed to implementing the necessary recommendations that will come out of these investigations. The Ministry is committed to ensuring that mining and indeed mine support services are carried out in a safe, healthy, and environmentally sound manner, and we will not relent in our efforts to ensure that we achieve this. Mr. Speaker, I humbly say to the good people of Apieti that the Akufo-Addo government, the government of the people, will without fail offer them the necessary support, leadership, comfort, and solidarity in their time of great need and adversity. Mr. Speaker, without a shred of doubt, the government of President Akufo-Addo is fully on top of this matter. Mr. Speaker, just as our Lord Jesus Christ said to his disciples in the words of Holy Scripture, in the Gospel according to John 16:22, and I quote, "Now is your time of grief, but I will see you again, and you will rejoice, and will take away your joy," end quote. Mr. Speaker, we wish the injured eternal healing, and may the souls of the departed in Apieti and the faithful departed abide in the bosom of the Lord until the last day of the resurrection, when we shall meet again. I thank you for your attention. There we go.
Honorable members, this is a statement from the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, and it is a statement on Order 72 not necessarily only 70, because 70 deals with just announcement or statement on government policy, and 72 deals with a matter of urgent public importance or of a personal nature. And so I will allow members to make, as stated by the standing orders, comments which are not meant to generate debate. And there's time limit to that. We still have one more statement, so I want to plead with members to be a bit brief in their comments. Yes, the ranking member of the Committee on Lands and Forestry, Lands and Natural Resources.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Oh, ours is still forestry, right? Forestry, yes.
Lands and Forestry, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to this statement ably presented by the Minister of Lands and Natural Resources. Mr. Speaker, as a logical thing to do, it requires that at every single event that causes pain and tragedy to the people of Ghana, we would expect a responsible government to demonstrate that they care for the people. And for the Minister of State responsible for the area of concern to come to Parliament and speak to the people through us, to let them understand that it is a tragedy that affects every other person. Mr. Speaker, this particular explosion that happened was of immense tragedy and caused a lot of pain, destruction of humans and materials, and as a result, touched everywhere else. When it happened, I was not in this country. I was in Uganda with my colleagues to visit the Ugandan Parliament and was informed about what happened. In fact, I was called by a person from the CNN because he thought I was in Ghana to enable him get in touch with somebody he could speak to. That tells you the extent to which the news went. And Mr. Speaker, and this is not the only thing that has happened in Ghana. It is becoming one too many for explosions to happen in this country. It tells us that there must be something we should be doing that we are not doing right. And I would expect that the minister, after making this statement, should go the extra length in finding out exactly what to do, he must do to curb any future such situation. Mr. Speaker, it is good that the public is called upon to help, and it's refreshing to note also that when it happened throughout the country, everybody was concerned and there was demonstration of emotions and desire to see the matter addressed. I was happy to hear also that the Vice President visited the place, but was a little surprised to note that the promise to the people did not go far enough. The Speaker, it must just not be to curb, to support them now and now, but to support them in ways that will help them to restore themselves to good life as they were living. Houses were destroyed, people were destroyed, lives were dislocated. The Speaker, at one point in time, a report came out that a man who sent his son out for something couldn't find the son and was in a hurry to go and fetch the son, and an explosion occurred subsequent to the earlier one, and he lost his son and he himself was lost. Mr. Speaker, there are very, very sad situations that occurred. Now, what happens is that, Mr. Speaker, every single time an event occurs, the police or authorities must take control of the incident scene. It didn't happen in this particular instance. And you found people rushing there to take pictures, others just for sightseeing. And then when the second explosion came, got injured, and some died. Mr. Speaker, it's important that we take particular notice of this, that the police must take authority at every single time an event like this occurs, so you don't have people plunge into it and get killed. Mr. Speaker, the investigation that must be conducted must start soonest and must bring to us a full and comprehensive report of what happened. It will help in future decisions. Mr. Speaker, since you have already cautioned that we should not speak too much, I will urge the Minister to work harder in getting a report on it. I'm already happy that he has taken some strict actions, including the fact that some people were withdrawn from office until full investigations are done. I'm urging that they should work hard, as the Vice President has promised, to give the people some solace, some help, some support, so that they would be able to keep up with life. They should not be allowed to sleep outside considerably for a long time. The Speaker, it is an event that has caused us a lot of pain, and I send my condolences to the many, many people who have been affected. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister for Interior.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I should contribute to the statement ably made by the Honorable Minister for Lands, in which he captures the essentials, a panoramic view of what His Excellency the President has been able to initiate. To these services went immediately to take action. I totally agree with what he has taken as far as it concerns the explosives, the transportation, and it is clear that the Chief Inspector of Mines is the Chief Inspector of Explosives, and it's his duty to actually produce an incident report. The Minister has been proactive, pursuant to the directions of Mr. President, and I think that everything has gone on well. For my part, I want to bring the dimension of the police into the matter, and indeed the other security agencies. They acted timelessly. And the honorable member on the other side was talking about a certain attitude that we need to deploy and also warn people against. The attitude of people rushing when there's an accident, especially when it involves vehicles carrying inflammables. Mr. Speaker, before I come back, a few days later in Kasi, there was an explosion involving a petrol tanker. And anytime we have accidents involving petrol tankers, what the residents do is that they rush to the tanker trying to take some of the food. A very, very dangerous exercise. And most of the time, we have explosions killing a lot of people. In this case, even though the police are yet to complete their investigations, the driver of the truck after the accident was calling on people to move away from the tanker. The people were rushing in, trying to take pictures. A very, very, dangerous exercise. And that has led to the deaths. But I want to assure all of you that the security agencies worked very fast. Explosive experts of both the Ghana Police and Ghana Army went to the scene immediately overnight to make sure that there were no unexploded explosives which could then cause harm. And even though the Vice President led a delegation to the site, all that we did there was guided to make sure that the crime scenes, potential evidence was not tampered with. So it was a technically managed a tour that did all it could to preserve the scene for further investigation. I share all the comments that the Lands Minister made, and to assure that we are continually reviewing the situation, and we will make sure that at the end of the investigation, we, the security agencies, together with the Minister for Lands, would do all that is necessary to achieve the President's goals in this matter. Goal to ensure that all who are affected are taken care of, and that lessons are learned from this to avoid a recurrence, and above all, that this country works together as it responded positively to this event, and to work together to make sure that Ghana continues to be a good example in these matters. Indeed, the LRA 2177, we believe, will be reviewed to see if it's adequate, and we will work with the Minister for Lands to make sure that we achieve them. For now, all I have to say is that the security agencies are still on the grounds and working, fire service, and getting us more information. At the end of the day, the report will be used to make sure that Ghana does not suffer the recurrence of such an event. Thank you.
Honorable John Jinapo.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, let me join my colleagues to first and foremost to commiserate with the victims of this unfortunate disaster. But firstly, Mr. Speaker, let me commend you personally, because I do recall that following this incident, you, on behalf of Parliament, issued a statement to express our condolence to all the affected victims. I also do recall that you personally followed with a phone call to my personal self, and I think some members of the committee, on what we can do as Parliament to also play our role. Mr. Speaker, I'm even fortified that by your action, not only have you shown that we should portray the Ghanaian culture with your beautiful dress, but by your action, you have also demonstrated that this Parliament, under your leadership, is up and doing what is right. Mr. Speaker, like the Minister said, he does not want us to prejudice the investigation. It is our hope that when the investigation or the outcome of the investigation is ready, and I'm referring to the report, is made available, especially to members of Parliament for our perusal. Because indeed, the Committee on Mines and Energy, which has supervisory role in the mining sector, I've already had discussions with the chairman. We intend visiting the community under your instruction to see for ourselves the extent of damage, and also to ascertain what government is doing in order to ameliorate the suffering of the people. Mr. Speaker, the LI that the minister referred to was passed in 2012. Following that, there's been a lot of technological changes, there's been a lot of advancement, and I think that the time has come to take a second look at the LI itself. Because if you read the LI, specifically Regulation 33, the permit to carry explosives, I think that with new technology, a lot more can be done. But Mr. Speaker, like the Minister of Interior underscored, more often than not, I think that the issue of education ought to be given a lot of priority, because most times when accidents happen, the first thing people do is, rather than moving away from the accident scene, a lot of people move there, especially with their mobile phones, to take pictures. And I think that that should find expression in terms of educating the Ghanaian on such incidents. Mr. Speaker, just to wind up, some of us would suggest, and I hope the minister will take this on board, even as he attempts to set up a committee to review the whole mining sector. Is it not possible that these explosives are manufactured close to the mining centers, rather than manufacturing the explosives at a far place and transporting them through densely populated areas to the mining sectors? It is my hope that NADMO would be resolved, because we are all aware of the difficulty that NADMO is facing, so that we can deal with the aftermath of such incidents. But Mr. Speaker, in ending up, let me assure you, Mr. Speaker, and this House, that the Committee of Mines and Energy would be leading up to its expectation. We are monitoring events, and we would pursue the necessary course of action through your guidance when we find it necessary. On that note, Mr. Speaker, let me once again commiserate and express our condolences to the bereaved families and to appeal to government to hasten the relief effort and ensure that life is brought back to normality. Thank you very much, Right Honourable Speaker.
The Honourable Minister for Environment, Science and Innovation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity. And let me also start by commiserating with the people of Apiti. I know the village very well, and I can imagine in my mind's eye what was happening on that day. Mr. Speaker, that can wait for another day. First of all, let me congratulate the minister who is directly responsible for this, Honorable Abu Jenapo, for the swift action that he is taking. But also let me also inform the House, the Minister of Environment, when we got wind of this, I also, despite the Director of Executive Director of Environment, to the scene. So we have also played our role. But Mr. Speaker, as a public health person, I was also following what my colleague health personnel were doing. And at this stage, I will mention names. There's one Dr. Avotri, who has a hospital directly in that scene. And I want to commend him. I've forgotten the name of his hospital, but it must be less than 3 kilometers or so from the scene. My information is that he and his staff, they were the immediate place for seeking relief, and they did very well. And at the same time, the doctors and nurses and health personnel in general, even those who are retired, voluntarily were marshaled to give help to everybody from Takwa to as far as field as Wasa Propon and their environs. I congratulate them. Mr. Speaker, these things are bound to happen, but it strengthens me in making the advocacy for the local content rule, that in the mining community we must be specific, and that those who are living in those areas, the mining companies should make a very good effort to recruit people from there, because apart from these acute emergencies, they are living with chronic diseases which are associated with the mining. That is the pneumoconiosis, inhalation of silica, and on a very high burden of the pneumonias, and even the social burden, prostitution, drug use, and all that. They have been foisted on the mining communities because of the mining industry. And I believe that this, and it's beyond government, because we can say that we are all Ghanaians. But if some people are bearing unusual burden associated with the industry, they must be the first beneficiaries. Because that village, whatever we do, we cannot bring lives back. And they are going to suffer for decades from this tragic accident. But Mr. Speaker, before I take my seat, the public too must be educated, and I want to echo what one of my colleagues has said. It is even unethical that when an accident happens, people go and then take videos without the consent of their victims. In fact, that is invasion of their privacy. And then I have a bad excuse where in Sewibekwai there was a similar accident, not an explosion. People actually invaded my theater wanting to take, video crates of people who were literally on the bed, theater table to have surgery. That ethos in the Ghanaian polity must be eschewed, and we must do that with education. And people should be sanctioned. I'm sure those who are doing that will be put on credit. So we are calling for legislation to capture that. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I know that there's a big investigation going on right now, and we anxiously await the outcome. But what I want to be added in the recommendation that a public address system must be mounted on this vehicle so that that lone driver who was telling people to stay away, if the public address system had been mounted on the vehicle, perhaps he would have had time to broadcast it so that people will, seek shelter instead of going towards there to find out what had happened. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I want to commend my own government for the action that it has taken. It's been swift, it's been very apt, and I believe that for all it is worth, the people there will be very appreciative of what government has taken. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Honorable Dr. Governor Donko.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I will want to commiserate with the people who have lost relatives, lost livelihoods, and lost incomes arising out of this mishap. Mr. Speaker, you will remember that your good self admitted a statement on this floor less than 3 months ago on regulatory and enforcement failure in the Ghanaian polity. Less than 3 months ago. Mr. Speaker, what has happened is a good example of enforcement failure. There are regulations, there are protocols, there are guidelines, and when all these are enforced to the letter, accidents such as this should never happen. This is not an act of God or an act of nature. Mr. Speaker, let me also state that as defective as the Air Lion explosives may be, it does not present any excuse. Mr. Speaker, the new thing in regulatory craft is that companies, particularly international companies, are bound to obey national laws or international best practice depending on whichever is higher. Indeed, in our petroleum regulations, which were carved more recently, that phrase is always captured. So in regulatory craft, the fact that a law does not make provision for any specific act does not exempt the company responsible for responsibility. And that is why the science today in regulation is that you are bound by national standards or international best practice, depending on whichever is higher. Mr. Speaker, in the best of regulatory enforcement environment, you will not have explosive being transported in such a manner that a purported interruption by a motor rider or such other incident will lead to such a major catastrophic disaster. It should never happen. It should never happen. Again, in other jurisdictions, the practice is that the container in which explosives are transported should be such that they will be able to hold the velocity of the explosion. It's in other jurisdictions. Mr. Speaker, we must also not forget that there's a provision of goods in transit insurance. And this is why I was disappointed that our Vice President immediately stated that the state was going to provide houses. It is not the responsibility of the Ghanaian state. The responsibility of the Ghanaian state is to ensure that appropriate insurance, appropriate bodies with responsibility provide the houses, because there is what we call goods in transit insurance, which should cover such accidents. Again, there's a principal-agent relationship. Whoever sent the load of explosives, whether it is the mining company that purchased it and contracted the transporter, or the manufacturer that will send it and contracted the manufacturer, has primary responsibility to compensate the good people of the area for any mishap. So, Mr. Speaker, whilst I look forward to the investigation, I will want the narrative that this has happened because we have defective legislation to be taken out. That is not international best practice. That is not what we do in regulatory management. It is a typical example of enforcement failure. And Mr. Speaker, my worry, as I stated on this floor, is that more than 50% of the issues in Ghana that worry us will not be there if we're enforcing regulations properly. Too much problems are transported to the desks of ministers because of enforcement failure of existing regulation. So it is high time we as a people place serious emphasis on regulation and regulatory enforcement. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity. Thank you.
Yes, the Honourable Minister for Roads and Highways. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like to associate myself with the statement so strongly made by the Honourable Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, Honourable John Abdullahi Snapo, and thank all colleagues who have also equally so strongly contributed to it. Mr. Speaker, a disaster of such magnitude should not be seen as a concern for only the people of Apiate or Western region, but indeed, Mr. Speaker, it concerns the entire country and was seen as a natural happening that happened, and it came as a result of transporting some explosives that, Mr. Speaker, clearly there were some lapses, but the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources is dealing with all those shortfalls. And this national disaster, Mr. Speaker, has been seen, and a lot of people in this country have expressed so much concern that all of us must work together to ensure that this does not reoccur in our country. And Mr. Speaker, it must be put on record that government and its agencies and ministries acted promptly to deal with this matter, and Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources, Ministry for the Interior, and Ministry of Roads and Highways work together also with NADMO to deal with this matter. Mr. Speaker, the blast created a very huge crater in the middle of the road, about 3 kilometers from Bogosu, and the crater was so wide and deep, about 21 meters long and about 10.3 meters deep. My ministry and its agencies quickly moved in because it cut off part of the road and brought the good people of this area to their knees, because all their economic activities came to a halt. So we quickly had to begin filling this crater, and as an immediate action, we had to create a diversion to enable the normal movement of goods and people to take place. And Mr. Speaker, we have been able to create a diversion of almost 270 meters long and of 7 meters wide, and we have restored to the good people of Apiate and Western region normal vehicular movement despite the great intensity of this unfortunate disaster. Mr. Speaker, my ministry has therefore put together about 3 strong contractors, MS Rango, MS Wilhelm, and MS Golden Star, to restore the road to its normal situation. And we have asked these contractors to continue to remain on site until we bring back the road to its original position. There are a number of activities concerning the scope of works of this road that are ongoing, and we will make sure that we remain on site and we create safety conditions for all motorists and all those who are using the road. Mr. Speaker, at this point, I would want humbly to appeal to road users and pedestrians together to take all necessary measures and follow all the road signs that have been put in place by my ministry to avoid further disasters. Mr. Speaker, we have visited this area more than 4 times, that delegation from my ministry, and on Friday, God willing, we are again organizing to visit the site and to make sure that we bring the road back to normalcy, to allow the people of this town, Apiati, and the region, Western region, and indeed the good people of this country to go by their normal economic activities. And we will ensure that on behalf of government, this will be done to its logical conclusion. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Lady who has been standing up, is that Honorable Zuwera? Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for the opportunity for me to make a contribution to the statement on the unfortunate accident that happened in Apieti in the Christia Huni Valley constituency. Mr. Speaker, we thank the Honorable Minister for the expedient nature in which he's taking to bring all of us to speed on what happened, giving us the adequate background that we desire to know, and also highlighting some of the critical issues that government and other partners have been able to undertake in order to bring some relief to the people of Apieti. Mr. Speaker, in Islam, the Prophet enjoins us that in times of adversity, in times of grief, we come together as a people. It doesn't matter what the differences that would have pertained. And so we all stand together with the people of Apieti, offering them our support and keeping them in our thoughts and prayer. In the statement, the Honorable Minister did mention that indeed the Vice President of the Republic of Ghana was about the first high-profile Ghanaian to pay a visit to the location of the accident. But when he got there, there was a team that the Vice President worked with to bring some assurance to the people and for the people to know that indeed government was abreast with what was happening. One of such personalities was the Honorable Member of Parliament for Prestea Huni Valley, the Honorable Kujo Robert. I found it curious that he didn't get a mention in the Honorable Minister's statement. We know how much time and effort the Honorable Member committed to this endeavor. We also know, and we thank the Honorable Minister for highlighting all the hardcore interventions that government has put in place and is putting in place. But in terms of such accidents, we look at immediately what we can do to resettle the surviving victims. That might form the soft part of the intervention. And when that happens, we have government, we have agencies, we have individuals who want to play a role in making sure that the people get some relief. One such individual who took it upon himself to extend massive relief to the people of Apietu was Mr. Ibrahim Mahama of Engineers and Partners Company. He gave 5,000 bags of rice, 5,000 tins of fish, and 1,000 gallons of cooking oil for the immediate relief of the people. And I thought that deserved to have been mentioned in the minister's statement. If for nothing at all, it boosts the morale of other endowed individuals within this country to chip in when things get desperate. Mr. Speaker, we've heard that some donated blood, others even contributed in terms of the communication to evacuate and move people to safety. All of that we commend highly. And we are aware, Mr. Speaker, that the relief items donated, a committee that has been formed to ensure that the items get to the victims, does not include a member of parliament for the area. And that is why I started off by sharing the hadiths of the Prophet, who said that in times of adversity, we come together. The member of parliament is the one person from that constituency and that area who will receive the most phone calls regarding the support and needs of the people of that area. And Mr. Speaker, we think it is fair that when we undertake some of these activities, we look and make sure that the people central to the activities are also involved in the relief, administration of relief items in such accident areas. I want to thank the minister once again for bringing us to speed on what his ministry and government will be doing in terms of the LI on explosive material. But we also need to look at what that means for the people. And that is where I want to join my colleague, Dr. Pabna Donko, when he makes the statement that in as much as we appreciate and congratulate and commend the government for its efforts, some of the statements that were made, as in the statements attributed to His Excellency the Vice President to both houses, should have been thought through properly. Building houses is important to resettle the people, but who bears the responsibility? If our laws work and work well, we will know where that responsibility should be sent to. Mr. Speaker, I thank you very much for this opportunity, and I want to join you as you did to extend our commiserations to the people of Apiti and wish them well. Thank you very much.
Honorable members, because of the importance of the statement, particularly the national trauma that we had from the disaster, I've given more than sufficient time for not just the presentation of the statement, but the comments. But I think it's appropriate to allow the Member of Parliament from the constituency to have the last say. And after him, we may have to move to another subject. And honorable members will have to consider that I've been sitting for over 4 hours. And that is unhealthy. And so, honorable member for the constituency, you have the last word.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I would like to take this opportunity also to add my voice to the statement presented by the Minister. I've been very sad since Thursday, and I described that Thursday as a black Thursday for the people of Christian Valley, and for that matter, Appiati. Right Honorable Speaker, I got to the scene few minutes after the incidents. And when I got to the scene, the fire service, NADMO, police command, BNI, they were all set there. I realized that the only machine at the spot was a backhoe doing that great job. So I called on the MC and assured him that I'll get excavators for him within the shortest possible time. So I drove back to town, and within 20 minutes, I was able to marshal 2 excavators, fuel it myself to the spot. And that's where the great work started, removing the debris and then the dead bodies. I was part of the rescue team throughout to the night, and we all decided around 3 o'clock to make a bypass route for all the vehicles from Kumasi, Takoradi, and other places. Then, in the second day, when the Vice President visited the place, I was with his team. I was even being introduced by the Minister for Information to the Vice President. And I accompanied him to almost all the places that he went and left the following day. I was present when we received a number of donations from Gold Force and other mining companies. We moved to the mortuary to make sure the information about data of people who have passed on is authentic. So we actually arrived at 13 people who have passed on. Right Honorable Speaker, this morning I've heard that a committee has been put in place to manage the items being donated by individuals and groups, which my name was missing. Yes, I've called on the MC that if anything at all, a rep from my camp should be present so that at least we all can monitor the items and make sure that they go to the right people, and then people will actually benefit from that. My greatest problem now is that when I followed the Vice President, there was a promise that we're going to put up houses for the people of Appiati. Right now, the Minister also has presented information of investigating the cause of this explosion. So I am pleading that as a House, we all monitor activities and make sure that whatever these people deserve are being given to them, especially with regard to accommodation. And then we all also have to follow and monitor and make sure that the appropriate investigation is being made to bring into book all those who are at fault. Because as a country and somebody who was brought up in the mining area, one thing I have realized is that safety measures are being taken for granted by most of the mining companies. You have to do A, B, C, D. They think that when you start from A to D and you skip the 2 in the middle, still you can arrive at the same destination. So the necessary action should be taken after we have found out those who were at fault. Right, Honorable Speaker, with all this and in a very sad mood, I pray that those who have lost their life, the great Lord will give them a peaceful and everlasting resting place. And then also those who are injured, that is my concern, how we can restore them, even if not completely restored to their former state, at least what they can depend on for the rest of their life. Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, for this opportunity done to me.
Honorable members, I think it's appropriate for the minister who actually made the statement to say a word. I will give him not more than a minute to do so in view of the extensive comments that have been made by members. He may have something to say about it. So, Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity. Mr. Speaker, first of all, let me thank the House for the very rich contribution they've made to the statement I made, and rightly so. Mr. Speaker, we will take all the suggestions, critiques, and inputs which have been made by members of this House, and that is indeed the essence of the statement I have made. Mr. Speaker, that said, let me just emphasize that investigations are ongoing, and therefore we all will have to wait for the outcome of the investigations. Mr. Speaker, when the Vice President said the Apieti community will be rebuilt, he meant it. And I said so in my statement. I want to reiterate it. Government is determined to build the Apieti community, and not just build it, build a modern community for the people of Apieti. As a matter of fact, tomorrow, God willing, I am visiting the community with the Minister for Works and Housing, who is the minister responsible for works and housing in our country, and thereafter we are going to get on with it and build the Apieti community. Mr. Speaker, finally, the Apieti Support Fund, which we have established, I will respectfully call on this House, members of the House, and the House as a whole to contribute generously to this fund. It is as a result of the contributions to the fund which we will use to support the residents of Apieti and also be able to build the community for them. Mr. Speaker, government is committed to be on top of this matter, and as everybody will attest to, the government has been acting swiftly, acting responsibly, acting robustly, and by the grace of God, we will get to the logical conclusion of the work we are doing, and the people of Apieti will be very happy. They have a responsible government. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members,
Mr. Speaker, with respect, it is just so because we don't get into these issues about MP, NDC, MP. That is why government is set up an endowment fund manned by independent-minded people. I believe they will work closely with the member of parliament of the area. But the fund has been established, and they are independent, highly renowned Ghanaian citizens who are responsible for the fund. So the MP should contribute to the fund.
Honorable members, I think this is a very sad occurrence in our dear nation. And indeed, it has brought up the true nature and character of the Ghanaian. We have come together in sorrow. We've come together to try to support the lives that were so graciously saved by the Almighty God, and also to see how we could together reconstruct the area for those who are living. Yes, government is leading the process, but a lot more Ghanaians have put in their little bit of support, including my good self.